Hello, dear listeners. If you're new here, we're Margin Mavens, and we are obsessed with writing in our books and sharing our thoughts with you guys. Today, we're going to go back in time and talk about Frostbite by Rochelle Mead. Rose and Lisa are back at St. Vladimir's Academy, but the world around them is rapidly changing as people are realizing that the Strigoi are treading closer and closer to them. So, Kayla?
Don't talk to me. I don't like you. I don't like you. We're not friends. Listeners, it's going to be the last episode of Margin Mavens ever because I'm never talking to Steph again.
That's not true.
You broke the bestie code.
Mm-mm.
Yes, you did.
I will.
You
I
did. You
will. I
did.
will say one book, and I will have my point made. The Fallout of Fallacy.
That was different. You liked it.
You didn't like this one?
I did.
Okay, so before we get too deep into it, right? So Rose and Lisa in the last book, we see that they had basically fled from St. Vladimir's and they get pulled back. We meet Dimitri, we meet Christian, we meet a bunch of the characters that we love and adore. We find out that Lisa is somebody that is specializing in spirit, which is so all of the Moroi can specialize in a specific element. Spirits is her element. It is incredibly rare, but incredibly powerful. But with that, we can kind of see the kind of pitfalls to it and the fact that she gets really bad like mood swings if she's using it. If she isn't the one that's getting the mood swings or she's feeling a type of way, Rose actually ends up getting a lot of her feelings. And we end up meeting Christian's aunt, who her name is Tasha Ozera. And she's really cool. She was the one that helped fight off Christian's parents when they turned Strigoi and wanted to take him and turn him later. So he obviously has a lot of love and reverence for her. We also see kind of the crux of the problem when it comes to Rose's view of Tasha is that Tasha wants Dimitri to be her guardian and also like with her. And Rose obviously does not like that because she is realizing more and more that she is in love with Dimitri. And she doesn't want him to be with anyone else.
Horrifying, truly.
And we get Mason, who has always been there for Rose. They end up dating in this book. She finally gives him a chance because she realizes, that he's a genuinely good guy and that he would treat her well. And so she tries to give him a chance. We meet Adrian Ivashkov,
who I loved.
Yeah, he is one of my favorites in the series. He's actually in the sequel series, so that's pretty cool. But he is a other spirit user, and he immediately is drawn to Rose, but she's got all of this boy drama going on with Mason and Dimitri, so she's not really interested in him. And like I said, the Strigoi are coming closer and closer to them. It all kind of starts when Rose is on her way to be tested. And when they get to the house that the Guardian is at, that is going to test her, they find everybody dead in a really gruesome way. And I think it's interesting because despite like Natalie of last book and Rose's encounter with that and everything, this is the moment that she really has that realization of
they're not to be messed with.
They're not to be messed with.
It's actually dangerous.
It's actually dangerous. It is not just the like posturing that comes with being in a class full of Dampiers that believe that they can take down every single one. She kind of ends up being the voice of reason in her friend group because they all, as these attacks start happening more and more, they all want to go out on their own and find these Strigoi. And she's like, all right, listen, I know what it sounds like. I know what we're capable of. I'm not saying that we, aren't strong, but these guys are not like our training exercises. And she's right.
Yep.
She's very right.
She has such an interesting character growth in this book. I thought the first book really showed her character growth, and then Rochelle Mead was like, bet, let me show you what she can really do. And she just becomes like this mature 17, like far more mature than she has any right to be at 17, and you still get to see bits of the teenage piece of her,
Yeah,
like
you see her like
as you
cattiness
expect.
and the
Yeah,
jealousy and like
but like her conversations with the rest of her friend group, and just like how she's trying to make them see reason. I'm like, damn, like she has really like come into herself and really like accepted that like she is not
all powerful and yeah.
infallible, like, and all that stuff. So
Yeah, because she sees I forgot his name, the guy that was gonna test her. Arthur, maybe? Yeah, something like that. But she sees him. Okay, so the guardian that was gonna test her, listeners, was his name was Arthur Schoenberg, and they go to the house that he's staying at, and all of the Moroi, all the guardians, like himself, they're all murdered, right? Pretty
now,
brutally.
uh, for some context, this guy is like
A legend among
a
legends.
legend.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And so that is really her first moment of if they can get him, like, what do I think I can
What
do
chance
here?
do I?
You know, because she
Yeah,
does have a very like human reaction at first and is like, oh, I wish I was here. Like, we could have done something. And Dimitri kind of pulls her out of it really quickly and is like,
mm-hmm.
do you think you could have done more than him? You
Right.
know, and there's a lot of things that they find out very quickly from this attack in that humans are working with the Strigoi. That kind of changes everything for them because they believe like, oh, if it's daylight, we're safe. If we have wards, we're safe. But we end up finding out that there's humans working with them because they're actually using the stakes that are meant to kill Strigoi. They're using them to break the wards.
Yeah.
And so a lot of things change very rapidly for them. We see Lisa and Christian are hopelessly in love. They're really just teenage love right now. They're in that honeymoon stage. Everything is great with them. I think like Rose's character growth is definitely why as a child I saw no issues with her and Dimitri because she's not acting like the people like the other students. She's not acting like that age group.
Right. Right.
And so I can definitely see like more and more of it. I think I'm still like the nostalgic part of me loves Rose and Dimitri, but it's definitely like the more I get into the series, the more as an adult I'm like this doesn't feel great.
It truly doesn't. And I will continue to take a star off from these books for this
Yeah,
sole
and I
reason.
think like it's a really hard take because we have Tasha who is like Dimitri's age. She wants a life with him. He believes that he can get that life with him, and he even goes on to explain to Rose later that he had to say no to her because like she wasn't Rose, you know? And I think one, like Dimitri is the adult in this position, and it really is
Yes.
frustrating to see him kind of like give in to her. I don't want to say tantrums because the character growth is there, but really given like he shouldn't be telling her these things regardless of how he feels. And knowing how the series kind of like plays out, I think maybe it's a controversial take, but I do truly believe that the blame for the relationship really does fall on Dimitri because he is the one in power. He is that adult. And no matter the fact that Rose is into him, like it's not a case of
Yeah.
her not wanting that from him. He still should have kind of like put his foot down and been like, even if I'm feeling these bad feelings, I'm not going to go out of my way to make sure that she knows it. I'm not going to go out of my way
Right. I'm
to
not going to
like
encourage
kiss
it.
her at the end and kind of flirt with her and have all of these things happen. I know that the next book is when Rose turns 18. And so things obviously change throughout the course of the series. But the next book I think is a lot more of a catalyst than this one. This one we haven't even talked about the nitty-gritty big detail, which is
No.
what caused Kayla to be mad at me.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to back it up for a second. Rose has given Mason a chance. She and him, I think, grow a lot closer. We see a lot more of Mason. She kind of ends up in like a lot of like wrong place, wrong time situations while dating Mason, in terms of like Adrian just kind of keeps showing up. And Mason is obviously like,
Her
why?
perfume. He sends her
Yeah.
a box of perfume.
Yeah.
And I was like, Adrian, bro.
Yeah.
But she takes one. She keeps one.
Yeah. And I think like there's moments like that that really show like Rose is still like a teenager. Like she is still gonna be a little messy at times. And so knowing that she like he gives her all of these perfumes, but knowing that she kept one and like wears it around him is crazy to me, because I'm like, man, I'd be like burning the world to the ground. Like I think Mason was so much chiller than I could have possibly ever been, especially at that age. Like now I probably would have been like, yeah, get your perfume, girl. But like as a teenager, I 100% would have been like, I'm gonna like burn the world to the ground. What are you doing?
Yeah.
And so they have given each other a chance. Mason is like all in, right? He's been all in with Rose since the beginning. And she is desperately trying to, the crux of the problem is she's desperately trying to replace Dimitri. I think if she would have walked into the situation with Mason, not focused so hard on who she was leaving behind, things would have probably worked out a little bit better, because she was constantly like, I think subconsciously comparing the two and trying to see how her feelings were. And I think she put a lot of pressure on herself to like dive in head first with it instead of just kind of like feeling it out, which is what caused a lot of her problems, because then when they're getting a little too intimate, a little too fast, she has that moment of freak out of, you know, I don't want this. I'm not interested in him. And it causes him to, I think, feel like he needs to prove himself a little bit, and also to get rid of that, like blow off some steam, you know? Yeah. But listeners, if you ever need to blow off some steam, play a shooter.
Go for a run.
Go for a run.
Do some yoga. Do some Pilates.
You know, buy a boxing bag. But like, don't go and chase the undead.
Yeah.
By yourself with a bunch of other teenagers. And not tell anybody. My thing is, no one in that group were even on like Rose level of ready. So knowing how it ends up, right? Like, even as a kid, I don't remember being shocked by it.
No, I saw it coming.
Because I knew like Rose is already on that different level between her and her classmates. And it's interesting because obviously she spent time away. Like they're supposed to be ahead of her, but she's got that like natural instinct and also that real life experience, and that really plays into it. And so even as a kid being like, man, like Eddie, Mason, Mia all go into the situation and none of them are on that caliber, right? And I'm like, man, like this is gonna end terribly. And we see a lot of Mia that makes her a little bit more human, in terms of like her mom gets killed. She gets this idea in her brain that she wants to like avenge her mom. She wants to use her
water magic. Dope water magic.
Yeah, she wants to use her water magic to fight against these Strigoi, and she really grows. Like, not saying that I...
She grew on me.
Yeah, like I'm not saying that I ended up like loving her by the end. But I think that's also because I held still a lot of resentment towards the first stuff. And even just like the things she did in this book before that,
right,
were a lot. But once again, everyone's got their own trauma and she's a teenager. But knowing that, so when it gets to this point, right, Rose figures out that Mason, Eddie, and Mia have all gone to fight the Strigoi, right? They're like, we're going to hunt down these guys and we're going to take them out. It's not going to be a problem because we are those guys. Spoiler chat. They're not those guys. No. So they get there and they don't find anyone, right? And so Rose and Christian show up and they realize that they hadn't found any Strigoi. And they're like, oh, we just found this like weird janitor closet, you know? No biggie, whatever. And it really shows that difference of caliber that Rose is on, because she immediately sees these like nonsensical letters on the wall and she notices that they have like markings next to them, and she's like, oh wait, this is like a hit list, like this is like a to-do list. And so
Mm-hmm.
she immediately is like, we need to get out of here. They don't get out of there, and they end up captured, right?
Mm-hmm.
Eddie ends up immediately being like fed upon, and like Eddie is out of commission for the rest of the story.
Mm-hmm.
Like we don't see Eddie again other than like them getting Eddie out, but he doesn't, it's fine. Christian and Mia are really struggling because they're going without blood for a while, and
Yeah.
they're, starting to get a little peckish. And Rose being Rose and being that main character, and I don't blame the others for not being on her caliber, because she's one of the main characters. She's got to be put on that
And
higher
also,
level.
she had what, 2 years of life experience,
Yeah,
right?
she, and not just that, but I think because she and Lisa didn't run into Strigoi out in the wild and stuff, but she had enough sense of like, oh, I like how to be cautious,
Right.
how to like not get themselves into these trouble and stuff like that. And then
Right.
also like the issue with Natalie, and then with Arthur, like she's had a lot of real world face to face. I don't want to fight these guys if I can help it, especially without a weapon. And so she starts having this plot in her mind of, oh, I'm going to get my friends out of here, but I'm probably not making it out, right? And I remember reading this book before knowing that there was like another book out already, and really freaking out, because I was like, man, if she dies here, it's gonna really suck for me. Like I was emotionally attached.
Right.
I'm still emotionally attached to Rose. So she kind of does this like final stand with the guy, right? I don't remember the Stragoi's name because he was ashes by the end of the book, but like,
Isaiah.
yeah, he so she decides she's gonna have this like final stand. Everybody gets out, right? And when you think everything is about to kind of go poorly for Rose, it goes poorly, but in a different way, because lo and behold, Mason comes back, because he cannot abandon her. He loves her. He doesn't want her to give up her life there. And I think this is kind of Mason's like fatal flaw, if we're talking literature for a second. Like if this was an epic, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's kind of a mixture, because I don't want to say it's just pride, because Mason wasn't there just because he thought he could like defeat the whole world at that point. But it's that mixture of pride and that mixture of love,
Yeah.
and it really is his downfall, because Rochelle could have let him like throw a punch. Rochelle could have let him.
But she couldn't. I hate that you're making me defend this decision, but she couldn't, because it just proves to Rose, it's a learning lesson to Rose, that this is going to be a difficult time. Like this is not going to be easy fighting these people, because Isaiah is old.
Mm-hmm.
Like Isaiah is an old Strigoi who has fed a lot, and between the age and the blood, like
He's a strong boy.
He is strong, and it just highlights to Rose that like there's going to be casualties in this fight. Like it's just,
and
and it also drives home the point that Dimitri was trying to make to her.
Yeah. And I get it, because now that you say that, I understand it a little bit more too, because Dimitri's whole lesson to her since like the first one was like, if you run into a Strigoi, you need to run. Like you do not stop and fight them. That is like a last resort. Like you want to get out of there. And I think a big part of that isn't necessarily that Dimitri would follow that advice, but that he knew, like at her age, at her skill level, that if she ended up in a situation and he was not there, she needed to run. And it really drives it home with Mason, because he runs, but then he comes back, and he comes back, he wants to fight, he wants to be there for Rose. And he has a gun and he shoots, but obviously the bullets do very little, if anything. And immediately Mans's neck is snapped. And even knowing that it was going to happen, I still like stopped reading, and I was like, man, like I knew that this kind of like is a catalyst for Rose to really take herself seriously in her training and what the stakes are, no pun intended. But it's also a catalyst in like she had to grow up very quickly in that moment just with how she handles like romantic situations, you know? And I think it shows because
Yeah.
her last conversation with Dimitri in this book, where I really do think that he does the wrong thing by kissing her, because she kind of has that moment of like letting him go.
Yeah.
And she's like, you know, I see it now. She's hurting still, but she just wants him to be happy, right?
Right.
And as uncomfortable as the scene made me, especially now as an adult and stuff like that, I think it was okay for the teenager to have that moment. The part that lost me was when we took what could have been like the healthy like conclusion or the closure point, even if that closure
Mhm.
point was just for the time being, like just for her to grow up and not be his student and like all of these things, for that closure point to then be ripped back open because he kisses her
Yeah.
and then has that ending thing of like her saying like, oh, like we're still going to continue our training sessions because you have a lot to teach me. And he's like, yeah, I do. I'm like, this is gross. You could
Yep.
have just like let her grow up and finish school and lived her life kind of thing. And if they rekindled it years later, it would have been like, yeah, okay, wrong time, right person, whatever
The trope
the
is.
trope is, right? I would have been okay with that trope. I think
Yeah.
in the last episode, listeners, you guys kind of heard me having to go back and forth, coming to terms with how I felt about Rose and Dimitri. And a lot of it is, like I've said before, because this is one of my first like series that I really read coming into like teenagehood. It holds a lot of nostalgia for me. I'm not going to say that I didn't love Rose and Dimitri at one point, but I think now as an adult, especially an adult who works with this age group, it's really hard for me to rationalize the decisions that are being made.
I can definitely see the attraction. Like, if I was a teenager reading this, I'd be like, oh my God.
Yeah, I
Oh
think
my God. Dimitri. Oh my gosh.
yeah.
But like now, at my big old ripe age of late 30s, no.
Yeah, I think I don't know. I think this is really one of those things where like the teenagers should love this. Not should. Should is not the word I was but like should as in
They will.
yeah, as in they will, as in like it's a formula for teenagers loving this trope and loving this like forbidden love thing. But the moment that you become an adult, like I think I'm the age that Dimitri is, and that really settled in with me when he was
Hmm.
being like propositioned by Tasha. You know, and I was like, man, like the idea of having somebody my age wanting to be with me, wanting to start that family, wanting to like be an adult, and I say no because I have feelings for a teenager,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know, minus
Yeah.
minus 30 points for Gryffindor. Like
Yeah.
it was not great. I don't remember what I rated this book. I think any score that I give this book definitely has a decent amount of it for nostalgia. For those
Yeah.
interested, I did not have nearly as much highlighting in this book, but I did have random doodles. Like there's a tree on one of these pages, and then there's like letters. I don't know. I don't know what was going on. Yeah, I think like if we look at the Percy Jackson series, I think the second book is usually the one that I like the least, but I don't think that that stands for this one because I think it really pivots the story into that darker tone than it just
Hmm.
being a like high school teeny bopper setting.
Yeah.
Like this one really changes the stakes, raises them, and I really enjoyed it. And I'm really looking forward to reading the other ones. I had to stop myself from immediately picking up Shadow Kiss and diving into it because I knew that Kayla was going to take my shins if I did that.
I don't know.
And
I still might.
yeah, and yeah, I mean, I think we've said it all, but this book was a roller coaster even knowing how things happened. But I'm definitely looking forward to the next one and then the next one after that. Do you have anything else to add, my love?
We didn't really cover
Oh my
much
God,
about
her
it, but her
mom.
mom, yeah.
Sorry, I trauma blocked it.
You did, yes. That's okay, though. Valid. I wish I could have trauma blocked it.
Okay, listeners. So Rose's mom is a, like, badass, right? In that guardian world. She is revered by many, respected by all, right?
Yes.
Not a great mom.
No. No. Okay, listen. As the mom in this duo, okay, I was reading this and I was like, ma'am, there is better ways to deal with your teenage daughter than this. And listen, it's been a wild month between the move and like school starting, but I was sitting there reading this book like, man, I'm doing great. I
Yeah,
got
bare
this.
minimum.
I'm doing great. I'm doing great. There's absolutely no problem with my parenting right now. Like, what do you mean? Yeah, really it's really insightful. I like her mom. I just wish her mom was
I think
more understanding.
Yeah, I think her mom. So Rose and her mom fall into that trope that I think a lot of mother daughter characters fall into. I don't know what the name of this trope is, but the thing of I made a choice that led to me having a kid, and I almost regret having her when I did. So I'm going to make sure she doesn't make that same mistake. And if she ever reminds me too much of me, I'm mean to her.
Right.
And it really sucks for Rose because so they end up having a bunch of guardians come to the school and they're giving like presentations and talking about how dangerous Strigoi are and yada yada yada. And her mom ends up being part of this, and Rose had no idea. And I think that the conversation, the interaction in the classroom would have gone so much better if she would have just gotten like a note at the very least that would have said like, hey, I'm on campus. You know, because she already had so much resentment towards her mom. To find out that she was there and didn't take 2 seconds to be like, hey.
To say hi?
Yeah, to be like, hey, I'm here.
Yeah.
You know, heard you've been going through a lot. Like, your daughter was attacked by a Strigoi last book.
Yeah.
And you didn't bother to send a letter, you know? And knowing that her mom's whole, like, excuse, the thing that she rides on is like, oh, I'm a guardian. Like, I can't take time away from them and whatever. And I'm like, okay, so bring them with you. Like, you're going to tell me that you're such a good guardian. You have respected everything by the community, right? Moroi and Dampier's together, that you couldn't tell the people that you're watching, like, hey, can you come with me to go say hi to my kid? I think it's lazy parenting. And so then, right, things are getting tense between them. Rose and Dimitri are having a weird moment. Rose like kisses him and he kisses her back, mind you. And he has that like guilt. And so he's avoiding her. And so her mom takes over a training session. And listen, her mom lost points with me the moment that she decided that the training session she was going to have with her teenage daughter, who was obviously pissed at her, was going to be a boxing match.
Yeah.
Because that is like a recipe for disaster. That is like me going to my Mexican mother and being like, hey.
Yeah, let me know how that works out for you.
Yeah, like being like, hey, we're gonna do a training session, right? And the way that we're gonna do this is we're gonna just beat the shit out of each other. So they're doing this, right? Rose is talking smack. Her mother is not giving many emotion, so Rose continues to talk smack. And then her mom decks her in the face.
Mm-hmm. Hard
like,
enough to give her a concussion,
yeah,
almost.
Yeah, black eye, concussion, whole thing, right? And the problem isn't even just the fact that it happens. The problem is that how it happens, where Rose gets hit, is a very obvious the mom meant to do it. And I will die on the hill of whether she had the rational thought of, oh, I'm about to deck the crap out of my daughter. There is no way I'm 100% on Rose's side of my mom is too skilled and too controlled to not have been able to correct her swing as she felt it about to hit me in the face. And so Rose gets a black eye by her mother, right? And everybody around her is kind of like, oh, like she didn't mean it. You should take it easy on her. And Rose, I think, is the only rational person being like, she gave me a black eye. And all of you are saying that I need to just take it easy on her. And they don't really have like a good conversation where her mom is like, hey, I'm sorry for doing that. Like her mom is like, how's your eye? But she doesn't like own up to it. There's never a moment of comeuppance or reckoning for this mom to be like, I messed up. My bad.
Yeah. And it's frustrating because you can see that Janine wants to connect with Rose and Rose wants that mother-daughter relationship. And the fact that they're just both so
stubborn,
similar, and they're so stubborn.
Yeah,
that
it was really painful.
There is the payoff at the end of like after
Janine coming
everything
to her
happens. Janine, she asks for her mom. Well, she doesn't really ask for her mom, but Mia anticipates, and Mia goes and is like, "Hey, like you need to go see your daughter." And I would love to be a fly on that wall to see what Mia had said to Janine, to be like, "Hey, you're still alive. Your daughter's still alive. Like, my mother's dead, and all I want right now is...
I just want my mom, and...
I just want my mom."
Yeah, I think... And I like Janine because she is, like, a strong, independent, like, badass.
Mm-hmm.
But as somebody who had to, like, claw her way through the mud to get, like, a good relationship with her mom... Yeah. This part was like really painful because it's that stupid trope again of we're only going to be there for each other in these like really crappy times. And it's incredibly frustrating from both ends because once again, and I fall back onto this, I think throughout the entire series, right? Janine is the adult. And so it's so frustrating when Rose kind of feels, or it seems as though Rose is having to do a lot of the heavy lifting to kind of get this relationship going, And even when like Janine goes and like visits Rose in her room and Rose has that like realization, I don't remember what the realization is about, but she kind of like pushes Janine out of the room because she says she's going to go to sleep, but it's because she's having all these big feelings, big realizations, right? Like Janine gets pissed at her and like slams the door.
Yeah.
Right? And it was such a like I remember just reading it and looking at the page and being like, you are the adult. Like you are the one that is meant to be more rational in these situations. Like I'm not going to blame the 17-year-old for doing something that hurt your feelings when you socked her and gave her a black eye. Like ugh. No,
I will not condone Janine swinging on her daughter like in any capacity, because God only knows how many times a kid says something out of pocket and your first instinct in some cases is just to like and then you stop
and you're like, this is a kid,
it's the wrong thing. It's a child, like it's fine.
Like
but her being unable to express herself to her daughter, I feel like is, man, like I would love to know more about Janine and how she met Rose's dad and all of that. Because the amount of trauma that must have happened to her to directly impact her in such a way that she is struggling to have a relationship with her daughter, like that's got to be some fucking juicy.
Yeah, and I think
juicy stuff.
Even taking it a step farther and thinking, I want to know so badly about the relationship that Janine had with her parents.
Right.
Because, like, it's a cycle. Like, we all know this. We all know, we all have parents that might not have done something that we would have thought was the right choice, right? But you really have to, like, give them almost grace because you don't know. Or, like, in my case, for example, like, trying to fix that relationship with my mom, I had to realize, like, oh, like, she had a mom and that mom had a mom. And then it really shows in how they treat their daughter. And yeah, we do get some information on Janine and the father of Rose later on. But yeah, I think Frostbite can really be summed up into like the adults were not adulting properly.
Yes.
And it really, really sucks as like an eldest daughter kind of having to see that like Rose really had to like raise herself.
Yes.
And any semblance that
And
she had of like parents and like a stable family died in a car crash.
yeah. And it also explains why she is so protective of Lisa.
Yeah, because she's like, this is all I got, you know? And it also
Yeah.
makes sense as to why she is fully like, I don't know. I think not to fall into the cliche trope and stuff, but like Rose really does have both mommy issues and those daddy issues. So it doesn't surprise me in the slightest that she is attracted to Dimitri because in a
Yes.
lot of ways he is that first adult to like
Take
be
care of
nice
her.
to her and take care of
Yeah.
her and all of these things, right? And as a
Yes.
reformed daddy issues girl, I can understand where she's going from, but it all just comes back to he should have been more of an adult.
Yes. Correct. Correct.
Listeners.
But anyway, dear listeners, those are our thoughts on Frostbite. I hope you enjoyed Margin Mavens because I never want to talk to Steph again after this. I just doing my contractual obligation. Listen, I'm still bitter, okay? I was all bright and chipper and cheerful about Mason and Rose, and then you just let me walk into a flippin' fire,
Yeah, I did do that.
and you expect me to not be mad?
I know. So, a couple announcements for you guys before we leave. We officially have a TikTok. It is Margin Mavens Pod. Go follow us over there because you'll be seeing some clips and stuff from our episodes. By the time you see this, a couple other goodies will have been announced and done. But I hope you guys have a good rest of your day, good rest of your evening. Kayla, what do you always say to them?
Stay tuned and stay gay.
And if no
And
one
if
has
nobody's
told you,
this, you are loved and we are proud of you.